Our next speaker is Donald Templer. As I said, he will be addressing his first AR conference. He is a professor of clinical psychology at the California School of Professional Psychology in Fresno. He has been the chief psychologist in 3 different hospitals. So if you've been wondering lately whether or not you're Napoleon, he's the man to talk to.
They're not short enough to be Napoleon. I am.
He's the author or co-author of 5 books, including such titles as Biosocial Psychopathology, Common Sense in Psychodiagnostics, and Preventable Brain Damage. He's an expert in death anxiety and has more than 100 published papers that cover quite an astonishing range of topics. Let me read you some of the titles of his papers. Anorexic Humans and Rats, Subnormal Intelligence of Rapists, Asian Black Differences in Aptitude and Difficulty of Chosen Academic Discipline, the nature and structure of febrile psychosis in the Sudan. I wouldn't have thought there was enough data to write intelligently about what goes on in the Sudan. Correlates of pathological gambling propensity in prison inmates. I'd love to read that paper. Neuropsychological deficits in active licensed boxers. This is just a tiny sampling of the subjects on which Dr. Templer has written for academic journals and gives you some notion of the breadth of his interests. So you can see that he will have an interesting and no doubt enlightening perspective on the subject of group differences. Please welcome Professor Templer.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Feel free to stop me at any time to ask questions or to give any information you think may be pertinent or even to disagree with me, although I suspect that I'm not going to say that many things that this audience will disagree with. Maybe I should first go over my background to give you more of an idea of how my lifelong interest have led up to my present research activities and to my presentation today. I have a very strong biological and epidemiological orientation for a clinical psychologist. I'm not interested in people's dreams or their childhood or how they feel. I stress such variables as race, ethnicity, social class, country of birth, nationality, religion, sex, and sexual preference. My psychopathology textbook, each chapter starts out with the list of people that are more highly vulnerable to the disorders under consideration. I've had an interest in these sort of variables since childhood in Chicago. I don't know how I got interested in those sort of things. I don't know how I got interested in fishing. I was always asking my parents, what are Polish people like? What are Italian even more evil than Adolf Hitler. I guess that was I couldn't figure out why stealing is so rampant in Catholic Chicago, but non-existent in Protestant Minnesota. I've published a good deal on the epidemiology of schizophrenia and the epidemiology of multiple sclerosis. I discovered that persons with multiple sclerosis tend to be born in February, March, April, or May. Multiple sclerosis is more common in Northern Europe than it is in Southern Europe. It's more common in Europe and North America than it is in the other continents. I have never believed that all ethnic groups are the same in psychological characteristics. I have believed since I was a graduate student in the 1960s that the black-white large IQ differences are genetic in origin. Homosexual persons have an expression coming out of the closet. Well, I came partially out of the race closet. Many years ago, I have always told many people that I think that the difference in intelligence is genetically based. It's only in recent years that I've come completely out of the closet. In 1997, I published a short paper calling people who are attacked because of expressing their opinions, writing about racial differences that are genetically based. I refer to them as the Galileos of the 20th century. And people like Phil Rushton and I, who's in the audience, racists like Phil Rushton and I, as some people perceive us, we are the Galileos of the 21st century now. In 2003, I published an article reporting a high correlation between the GRE scores, graduate record examination scores of a discipline, and the ratio of Asians to blacks in that discipline. I said that blacks fare less well than Asians across my concept of the neuropsychological spectrum. Whites and East Asians are superior to blacks on neurological test of brain size, on neuropsychological test, on culture fair intelligence test, on aptitude test, and achievement test. Blacks fare less well on intelligence test and achievement test than minority groups who are more economically advantaged than they are and who do not have English as the language, first language in their home. In 2003, in fact, it was in December, Hiroko Arakawa and I presented a paper, International Society of Intelligence Research, in Los Angeles, based on Phil Rushton's conceptualization of greater intelligence evolving in colder climates because of the greater demands of coping in these climates. And we indeed did find substantial correlations between IQs of the country, mean IQs of the countries of the world, and temperature. But we found a very high correlation, surprisingly high, 0.92 between IQ and skin color, which we conceptualize as an index of the multi-generational experience, multi-generational, let's see, how did we phrase it? Yeah, we can say it as the multi-generational reflection of climate. So, this is how I got from Chicago to California to suburb of Washington, D.C. Now, to the meat of my address. Black Americans and many other minority groups. Okay, sorry. Hear me now? Okay. Black Americans and many other minority groups have suffered from injustices in the history of our society. And this is unfortunate. However, the present problems of blacks have little or nothing to do with slavery, with segregation, or with lynching. And I wish they would shut up. To use very scientific language, I wish they would take that talk and shove it. Doesn't have anything to do, very little to do with these sort of things. What it has to do, their problems, the problems caused by them, are mainly a function of low intelligence and poor impulse control. It is nature and not white people that have given blacks smaller brains and lower intelligence on the average. The denial of this very large inherent intellectual difference is harmful for black persons, harmful for other minority groups, harmful for white people, and harmful for the United States of America. You are a very sophisticated audience, so I don't need to tell you that whites have an IQ of